Hey everyone, thanks for joining into Super Soul Solutions. As many of you know, the quote, "It's simply elemental, my dear Watson," is a famous phrase from Sherlock Holmes. So I changed it a bit for the title of this show to "It's simply elementals, my dear," because the elementals and Fae Kingdom, spelled F-A-E usually, sometimes F-E-Y, are key to understanding literally the nature of life and, surprisingly for many of us, our origins. My wish is that this show will really brighten your day. I know a lot of you have been through a lot, and open you to a more expanded and magical sense of awe and wonder in your life. It is synchronistically perfect that we are doing this show on the Elementals and Fairy Kingdom on the eve of the full moon. So let's see, I would first like to ask that those of you listening live, and if you're close to a computer or iPad, you might want to type in supersoulsolutions.com, my website. And what I want you to do is go to look on the banner for the heading of whispering. Scroll under that, and the first subheading is Fairy Elemental Whispering, where I designed for you 19 pages, including many photos of real fairies. And if you have that up, it's going to make it much more real and animated for you. So you can look at those as I share, and for those of you that aren't by a computer or a tech device, you can just check it out later. And you also may enjoy the subheading also under the Whispering banner called Wisdom with Whimsy. Okay? All right, so I have so much to share with you in each show, and as you know, have not had time to cut it short to previously answer questions. I want to apologize for that, and I really want to get to know you all better. So as you heard us mention at the beginning of the show, Nicole, the producer of News for the Soul, is on standby, hopefully the last 20 minutes of this show, to receive questions and call-ins for you. So I'm just going to remind you of the number for call-in, 646-595-4274, or email questions to News for the Soul, and the email is on the air at telus, telus.net. So, and also, just so we can address as many questions as we can, please keep the questions to the point, short, and relevant, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, so I wish all of you to know that the fairies and fae are very excited that we are sharing, and I am speaking of their lineage to all of you. It is absolutely imperative that we work together in a synergistic and mutually respectful way so that Mother Earth can make it through this current stress she is under. You could say part of my mission on Earth is a diplomacy mission to reestablish our friendship with and educate about our genetic connection with the Fae. And the general name for elementals or fairies or Fae, those are all interchangeable, or also include Elven, sprites, leprechauns, brownies, pixies, dwarfs, etc. And for those of you that were asking earlier, fairies and angels are different elementals and fall under the heading of divas, D-E-V-A. And there's a Tinhorn community, I don't know if you guys know about it, northern Scotland, that I visited last year, whose founders were able to communicate with the nature spirits, or divas, which you could call the head, the upper tier of each individual vegetable, plant, flower species. So they speak as one for the entire specific species. It could be a pumpkin diva, it could be, artichoke diva, it could be a chrysanthemum diva. And they've been doing this for, 50 years. So you might want to check them out. And the first book was called, I think, The Magic of Tinhorn, and it came out in the 1970s. And it was really, really, really fun, and they received communication on exactly where and how to plant different species for maximum benefit, because their soil was basically sand. They live way up in northern Scotland. So this is for those of you that are interested in exploring more examples, might want to delve in it more deeply. You might want to explore communities such as the Damanhur Damanhur community in Italy. And they use electronic hookups to their plants in their little forest where you actually can hear them talking, quote unquote, or shall I say, singing back to the innocent children. It's just adorable. I'm not going to say any more. All these you can find easily online if you plug in the names. Then, of course, there's also Cleve Baxter, who was an interrogation specialist for the CIA, who is the originator of the lie detection device and did fascinating research, I believe, in San Diego, California, with a polygraph in about the 1960s to illustrate, like the title of his book that's called Primary Perception, and to illustrate that primary perception exists in all living beings. So he demonstrated positively that plants can sense negative or positive intent from humans. And by the way, you think I'm kidding, but I'm not. By the way, he proved, okay, for all you folks out there that love gardening, if you're the first to water a plant or tree or flower, or bring one home, water it, they will bond with you and you specifically. And there's much I will share with you about that whole subject, plants and their abilities and perceptions, in a future show. So let's start back in the 16th century with a gentleman I'm sure most of you have heard called Paracelsus. And he was one of the first to write about nature spirits or elementals. And his book is called, or was called, Nymphs, Sylphs, Pygmies, Salamanders, and Other Spirits, and was published after his death. So he kind of named nature spirits or elementals in 4 general categories, which you may or may not have heard of. So I'm going to go over those really briefly. The first name is salamanders, whose essence and can control the fire element. That's why the general umbrella term is elementals. These are beings who work with the elements of nature. The second one is undines, who control the water element. And I'm going to throw in a couple little things here and there, which I am sure none of you have heard. And one of those is we have real live mer people, meaning mermaids and merman. We have several different species living in our oceans, especially in the Mariana Trench, where there's a portal that exists. And I've had this verified through super soldiers, through a bunch of different people who have actually been there, as well as one of my previous radio guests, Scott Lemriel, who writes affectionately in his books of the oceanic species that he also confirmed was in the Mariana Trench. Now, so, you know, for those of you that think this stuff isn't real, it is. So the third is gnomes. All of you have heard that, which is a much more common name for those who work with the earth element, like rocks, trees, and soil. And the fourth category is sylphs, S-Y-L-P-H-S, that are made up of and work with the air element. And occasionally they take amazing angelic shapes and cloud formations. And if you look online and you type in Russia angel cloud, or you type in South Florida angel cloud that was reported by NBC News, you will see examples of these sylph-like beings who appear in the sky when there's no other cloud in the sky or in their general area. And that might be fun for you also. There's more I can say about that, but let's stay on topic here. So, according to Paracelsus, undines, which are, remember, the water beings, are similar to humans in size, generally, when they take shape, while sylphs, which is the air element, tend to be longer and stronger. Gnomes, of course, can move interdimensionally through rocks, walls, and soil, and they're generally short. And fire salamanders tend to be long, narrow, and lean. Now, there are all kinds of variations in subspecies, but I only have time to give you kind of the general outline, so we're all on the same page, so to speak. Paracelsus states that each one stays healthy in its particular element, which is its specialty. as he terms it, but it can dissipate when dealing with elements it has not had practice with. These elementals are said to be able to move through their own elements, just as we human beings move through air, which is an interesting way of looking at it. I want to share with you, so this is such an exciting topic for me. Years ago, I had the honor of being introduced to a mighty warrior sprite who sits on the shoulder while hanging on to his human soldier's ear, okay? He is not visible to the public, by the way. They generally are not for very specific reasons, but they can be, and we'll talk about that. This sprite is amazing and wise with many abilities and is about 275 years old our time. He is about 8 inches tall, and the soldier, the future soldier at a very, very young age, you're talking 9 years old, and he's a human, was given a gift by a Palladian sage, and I'm sure the audience is familiar with these terms. Palladians is the general, area in the sky that we refer to where our home areas are home planets of certain species as well as humans. Palladians are actually our cousins. So he was given a gift of this warrior sprite. Of course, it has to be mutually agreed upon. The warrior sprite has to like you, or an elemental has to like you. And so he was given to this person, I'm refraining from giving names, to a 9-year-old human who would later become a formidable soldier in our secret space command fleets and was from very strong elite German genetics. So I learned a large portion, not all, but a large portion of what I know about elementals and fae, spending many, many hours over several years as he patiently answered my questions. And each visit, I'm not kidding you, I would have 100 questions, okay? I guess you guys know that about me now. So, by the way, he made very clear that fairies are not to be thought of as cute little things like the depiction of cherubs. They are to be taken seriously. And I'm sure you've heard that some stories of elementals' mischievousness. And boy, I could spend a whole session on telling you fun stories about that. But since we were talking about this fire sprite, there was one time where this fire sprite got bored with his human partner who was in a conference at the time. And he decided to start a fire in the hotel by sparking the electrical wiring. So the smoke alarm goes off, and that was the end of the talk. So this sprite is one, excuse my language, kick-ass, wise being, and extremely loyal to who they're assigned to. You need to know this, because if you want to befriend and want them in your life, it is for lifetime, and they take friendship very seriously, much more than humans. So this particular sprite had amazing abilities. He could spy on anything, take apart dangerous AI machines, and tons of stuff. And by the way, for all you guys out there, if a fire sprite takes a liking to you, he gets excited and will spark you just by touching you. So it's like a light taser. Feels like a quick electrical shock. So, by the way, when I asked this gentleman, I said, do sprites in those species have the equivalent of sex? And he said, well, when the sprites wish to play, he's talking about his sprite, which is in the fire element. When sprites wish to play, they will revel within lightning storms, and that is one of their versions of sex. So, talk about getting turned on, huh? I know, that was a joke. Okay, so I'm going to include really quick a side note regarding lightning, which may surprise you. So some of these supposedly natural fires have targeted portals that elementals and others use to come into and out of this dimension, such as the one in Paradise, California. And if you want the answer to what is causing not all, but the majority of these fires, look at such scientific articles such as Scientists Control the Path of Lightning Using Lasers, which is a research center in Canada, or Lightning Directed by Laser Beams by New Scientist. Okay, enough said about that. You figure out the rest. I'm sure you guys have heard of the famous Irish poet who I loved, W.B. Yeats, and he had quite a special kinship with the fae folk. And one of his short little poems, it's so sweet, it just says, "Come fairies, take me out of this dull world, for I would ride with you upon the wind and dance upon the mountains like a flame." And that reminded me of this fire sprite I met. So let's go back to Paracelsus for a minute. Paracelsus conceived of human beings being composed of three parts: an elemental body, interesting use of the word, because most people don't realize they're elementals, literally, a sidereal spirit, and an immortal divine soul. He felt that elementals lack this last part, the immortal soul. And he said that when elementals choose to complete their life, they can dissipate into the greater whole. This fire sprite is considered pretty old at like 270 or close to 300, and he's very powerful and whatever, and he has actually paired up with several human warriors in his lifetime. But, of course, they outlive the humans. So Paracelsus wrote about one of my faves, which is the Elven folk, and hinted that by marriage with a human being, which is done today by sex or in vitro, by the way, the elemental or the Elven elemental and its offspring become a hybrid and can receive and maintain a soul in a human physical body. So I thought you might be interested that we have at least 68,000 mixed hybrids on Earth at this time. And some are the new children spoken about in the last radio show I did. Now, let's see, where do I want to get at? I think I wish to share with you one of the most exciting secrets I learned from researching our human origins on and off planet. And please remember, I do not share what I have not had verified by at least 3 different sources that do not know one another. So my question to you is, are you curious if you are a fairy or fae hybrid here on Earth? And there are indeed fae, fairy humans or elven humans on Earth. Absolutely, I can personally vouch for that. And I thought I would share with you some characteristics and see if you relate to any of these through a human ancestry that is Celtic, sometimes mixed with German, sometimes even American Indian, because those genetic lineages, somewhat stereotypically, but it is true, makes the human the most naturally psychic or intuitive. So it's kind of passed down through family lineages. And let's see, the fae humans I've met, you can kind of notice them by their passions, the sparkle in their eyes, and they usually have slightly larger or slanted eyes. That's a big giveaway. And they often have a slight point to their ears, and they definitely have a love of nature and animals, and they will tend to mistrust humans. And that is because most of them are extremely telepathic and intuitive, and they can tell whether you're lying and if you have too much dark energy. And of course, we only want to deal with the positive fae, and like attracts like. They don't want anything to do with you. And they've seen how we pollute and how we litter. They are sad. They want you to know they're sad about how humans do not see the inextricable connection between the earth's health and our own health in our bodies. And of course, at this time when we're dealing with so many fires, smoke, and air and water purity, that is becoming more and more obvious in everyone's backyard. Okay? So qualities of the elemental kingdom, they like to sing and dance and love music of certain qualities. They often have flowers around wherever they live, and they generally like to dress in a colorful fashion. So you have, like, say, a little girl or a little boy, and they're putting pinks with chartreuses and greens and black and all kinds of, like, fashioning their own outfits. There's likelihood that they have as strong genetic Fae mixed with their human DNA. They may actually live in tree houses, tiny homes, small cottages, and they basically need to be in nature or they get depressed. They do not understand the concept of Earth time, and most don't understand our kind of math. I will tell you that I used to wake up as a young child, and I would ask my family all the way till 8th grade, is today tomorrow? Is yesterday today? Because there is no time beyond Earth. And so also, it was impossible for me to do math. I just didn't get it. I thought it was crazy. And that is another common thing among these people. They're just like, they don't even care about math. They don't need it. So they're generally expansive thinkers and dreamers. They're full-on sensitive empaths, as many of you are out there. I can feel that. And they often feel overwhelmed from everyone's energies and emotions. Some are mischievous and lighthearted, and others are quiet and cautious. These I'm talking about can be characteristics of you. We're talking about the human hybrid, okay? And others are quiet and cautious and do not share it with others that they know won't understand. Sometimes they'll feel like the black sheep in their family, or, oh my God, I'm sure I was adopted. They are usually telepathic, especially with plants, animals, and nature. And they, as I said, they can tell whether you are lying or not. They can see your aura. That is provided they've managed to keep all their abilities intact, which is a challenge. Usually about 25% of them are able to do that, depending upon if they have conscious parents or not. So, and they are not weird. They walk amongst us, the Fae human walk amongst us, and you would not really notice them unless you become aware that these beings are here. And there are 68,000 hybrids on Earth right now. That was the last count I was able to get from some higher up, so to speak. Okay, so they become more and more aware of being multidimensional. So if you become more aware and are interested in exploring your abilities and multidimensionality, if you tend to be very sensitive and under the slightest pressure leave your body, and that is kind of an inherent escape mechanism. And that goes back to when they were persecuted and killed by others in ancient history. And in my next show, I will share their traumatic history and much more about them. And let's see what else. Here's a super cool fact. I found out that, believe it or not, cost me lots of time and money. I had to travel very far to several different people to find this out, mostly in the Celtic regions of Europe. So, did you know, very, very, very few people know this, so this is an exciting fact for me. Did you know there is a way to tell a human is a hybrid of any kind, but especially the Fae or fairies, by examining their DNA? Now, please note, I'm not talking about the basic standard DNA readings that everyone has signed up for and got, which are very incomplete. They're just very basic. They're interesting, yes. They'll tell you a lot, but they don't tell you anything about the multidimensionality. This higher tech is used in advanced programs, all right? So I am talking about much more complete DNA readings that secret space programs and others use with sophisticated advanced tech to check on a specific person's DNA, to check on their personnel DNA, and retrieve information about them regarding their innate abilities and capacities based on their specific mix of ET and other genetics. So now here's another, not everyone, of course, has Fae human DNA. Your DNA is generally a culmination of many species, a lot of humanoids, and a culmination of many of your lives and what you want to explore and what you want to access while you're being human on Earth. So you probably do have fairy human DNA if you are attracted to today's topic and listening. Now, threaded through our DNA, our specific DNA from other species and lives, as I said, we have, and everyone's DNA, especially when you look with the advanced equipment, is truly unique. That unique DNA was determined, I think back in 1970 by Tsuma Ono, was termed junk DNA, or what they call now non-coding DNA, if you will. The 98% of DNA they call junk or non-coding was disconnected on purpose through genetic altering several times, many thousands of years ago, by ETs. And nature never builds anything she doesn't use. So the fact of thinking this disconnected DNA is junk is ridiculous. Many of us are remembering now we are co-creators and thereby can elevate our frequency to learn to switch on or off DNA. And if you want to explore more of that, that's called the study of epigenetics, EPIGENETIC. It's the epigenetic concept you can explore on your own. You can switch on and off your DNA by emotions and your consciousness. Okay, here is what I've been waiting to tell you, which is the absolute coolest thing I found out. I have so many things, but I love this. So the question I was asking was, how does one tell scientifically if they are a Fae human? Here's the answer scientifically. Remember, using this special tech equipment that very few people have, unfortunately. Fae human DNA is different from Earth human DNA because it contains floaters, spelled Floaters, floaters. When microscopically looking at one's DNA, there will be segments of DNA that float, that literally float, meaning they fade in and this reality. Because, why? They are between two worlds, which is why the Fae often exist between the third and fourth dimension and go back and forth, appear and disappear in a kind of phase shifting. And I was so excited to get that scientific backup, but of course they need very, very sensitive equipment that can pick up astral levels and higher dimensions, which they have. Okay, so we're not going to find out our genetics specifically, even though I have, but most of us aren't going to. So what I'm prompting you is to, if you're listening to this, you probably likely do. Because otherwise you wouldn't even be interested in the subject and you would think it's all imagination, etc. So even though most Fae are adept at phase shifting, I want you to know it can be dangerous for the Fae and fairies to become corporeal just so we can see them. In my mind, for us to ask that of them. I have had amazing experiences with fairies and I do not see them. That's important for you to know. You do not need to see them or have your total clairvoyant abilities open to be with them, work with them. If you believe, this is where, the one thing where Walt Disney was right, if you actually believe they will come to you, providing you are respectful of nature and you have fairly clean energy. And they really want to. They really want to work with us in cooperation. And they're like so fun, which I'll share with you a little later. So why is it selfish for us to ask them to become corporeal? Well, they don't want to risk going through, okay, so like if you're following through the website that I recommended to you, you're going to see many houses I built. And you'll notice that the houses have no doors and windows that are shut. People love to go get fairy stuff that has doors that don't open. They hate that because for them to cross the dimension, they're adept at it. But if they screw up at all, they can leave a piece of their overall energy behind. And they cannot recuperate that again. This is really important to know. So basically, check out the houses I have for them, both in my office and home, that are on the pages. And what I do in good weather is I leave my screen or window open a couple of inches. That's all they need, so they can go in and out and easily. And I give them a 3-minute warning if I am going to close the doors or windows. So I might go, hey you guys, here's your treats I'm putting out inside. And because there are outside fairies and there are inside fairies, and then there are ones, they all have their own preferences. But they appreciate any effort we make to them as long as our intent is good. So I warn them, and they come in for their honey, etc., which they love, which I'll share with you in a minute. And then I leave it open, and I warn them, and I say, okay, you guys, it's getting cold. I'm going to close the door or whatever in a couple minutes. And that is considered fairy etiquette, by the way. Okay. So this also was confirmed to me that, as I said, it makes it dangerous for them because each time they phase shift, they can lose a part of themselves. So that's why they don't appear visually to everyone. And also most of our frequencies aren't high enough yet so that they can meet us kind of halfway to actually see them, unless you are a clairvoyant or clairaudient or whatever, which more and more people are accessing. So, warning, they do not like metal or iron or steel. I saw someone build a house out of metal. I went, throw it away. It burns them, generally speaking. They do not like it. They want gifts or food out of natural things found in nature, made of wood, shells, sea glass, earth elements. Okay? So the cool thing is that as our own frequency is increased and we access our fifth dimensional higher self, as you know, more of our abilities and third eye ability opens, especially if we can be on the better side of no sugar and no drinking fluoride in water or toothpaste, because those things block the pineal gland. And by the way, Elvens and Fae hybrids, so if you meet a human and you find, wow, they have kind of like something magical about them, Elvens and Fae hybrids generally refuse to eat any meat or kill any animal. They find that disgusting. And they also know it lowers their frequencies. So if you have birthed a Fae human, you might find from day one they're like vegetarians, and there's and they'll get really upset if you try and force meat on them. So most of them are here for the plants, the animals, and Earth, and their mission is to help humans awaken. So that's why they're really excited about this talk. And an example of that, write this down, everybody, is there's a YouTube video of a 10-year-old crystal child, which I will explain in a minute, who remembers coming into reincarnation on Earth as an elven being. She has full memory. Tube star seed talk, and then look up number 10. Marina is from the Elven realm. And she is delightful. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it. It is an hour. Just ignore the stuff you don't like, but listen when she talks. And she also has a younger sister, age 4, who's from the dragon realms. And yes, there are dragon realms and benevolent dragon realms. Their mother, who is also there, is an indigo being, fortunately. And so the mother is awake and has nurtured and guided and continued nurturing her 4 children's awareness. You will learn on this video that typically the Fae humans don't get, as I said, understand math, and they don't get time at all, and they find standard education stupid and boring, like the new children do too. So on full moon nights like tonight, and also at the changing of the seasons, the fairies appreciate you leaving them mead, honey, milk, or pure water in shells or little wooden bowls. They like berries and seeds and nuts along with the birds. And what they actually do, people have asked, well, is the food going to disappear? And I said, no. Sometimes it will, but most of the time, no, because they extract the life force essence from the food and water. So when you leave it out for them, give them a couple days, and do not eat or snap on that yourself afterwards, because it will be dead food with no life force because they've extracted it once they have partaken. Now, the other thing is they have all these cultural rules and all kinds of things. I study many, many, many species cultures so that I can be more compassionate and integrate. And surprisingly, they do not ask for much nor need our thanks. They don't care about our thanks, which is kind of interesting to me. They don't get that. They do feel actions speak louder than words. So if you're someone who's walking in a parking lot and pick up garbage and you're conscious of that, they're more likely to be attracted to you. So if you want to start a friendship, like I said, it is for life. Fairies and elementals are very definite in what they like and dislike. They are great partners and playmates and can help in many arenas. So they also love crystals, and they love to sleep in soft beds within little baskets high up on your closet shelves or bookcases, away from noise or electrical equipment, because they're very sensitive beings. As you may know, sunrise and sunset are powerful in-between times to communicate with the Fae when the veil is thinner. And the time the veil is the thinnest is on the website pages that you are looking at. You will also see, for those of you looking at the website pages, you will notice a centered, beautiful, actual large photo of a very shy tree fairy taken by James Gilliland on his East Seti Ranch at the base of Mount Adams. And the story behind that was he is very intuitive and speaks to many species, but he was planting a row of fresh trees down his driveway, and he heard, "Thank you." And he thought he was imagining it. He goes, "Thank you." And he laughed and he said, "You're welcome." And he kept planting and kept planting. And as he was about to leave, he saw out of the corner of his eye this fairy. And he said, "Am I allowed to take a photo of you?" And she was very sensitive. And she said, "Yes, thank you for the trees." So that's an example of how they could be. I want you to see that. It's an actual photo. So I have an entire village of 11 houses and stores I designed for the fairies and elementals to honor and invite them into my backyard. And I also have one at the office I call the Yoda and the Fae Hangout, and you'll see it on the website. Now, this idea occurred after receiving a call from a woman who wanted to meet me, and the bottom line was she ended up being an indigo. We did no small talk for 5 hours, and she started laughing. And I said, "What are you seeing that's delighting you?" And she said, "You have so many happy fairies in your office. They're playing everywhere." And so that was validation, as I've gotten many times, because, again, I don't see them, not yet. But I got validation that, they appreciated the house, they appreciate everything I do, they appreciate the education, etc. And they're here helping with healing and doing whatever they can do. And they have done many, many things. The Fae and Elementals are helpers, as I said, and lovers of nature, really throughout the universe. They can manipulate the weather and elements, and they've done so when I needed. And they each have their own unique dazzling abilities. They can be moody a little bit if they are not respected. And so it is a time for us humans to remember and work more consciously together again if you are pulled to do so. So earn the trust of the benevolent ones, as I said, by having as much positive, clean energy and doing sincere, consistent actions for their beloved planet Earth, like pick up litter, recycle, have a garden, flowers, etc. If, by the way, they're indoor fairies and you have a guest over to your home that is loud or darker, heavier energy, they will leave, at least short term, okay? So these fae and fairies gnomes, brownies, elves are interdimensional aspects of the angelic deviant kingdom. And one of the largest populations has been called the Sidhe, pronounced She, it's spelled Sidhe, in the Celtic Islands and Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England area. And they're called the people of the mound. And they're similar to the elves that Tolkien introduced. And I want you to know he was an insider. He knew what was going on and had attended, I will just put it this way, interplanetary conferences, okay? So he was introducing the Elven race, which is not like some small little elves necessarily. They're about 6 to 9 feet tall. And there is a picture of a woman on my website that fits the bill. And I will discuss in my next show that, let you know, Fae and Elven are part of our original source energy, no matter how surprising that may seem. They are direct family. And so human and the Sidhe have original common ancestry. And he wanted to present that in The Lord of the Rings. He wanted people to know, according to Tolkien, that the elves and humans are biologically the same species and can mate and produce fertile children, and they can. And those are today human hybrids. The difference lies in a spiritual or energetic realm. When elven beings, he felt that elven beings were bound to the world, to earth forever, whereas the human mortals age and depart from the world. I cannot vouch for that yet, but I can find out details on that. So, those of you that have been looking at the website, you're going to see many amazing things, including many presents they gave me. I worked with them for 3 or 4 months, years on total faith. And I left in my front yard a crystal necklace on the ground, and I surrounded it by mini pine cones. And I said, this is a present for you, because I love crystals, shiny objects, pretty stones, beads, marbles, etc. In less than 24 hours, that picture is on the top of the webpage I referred you to. In less than 24 hours, I went out to look, and you're going to see an entire face circle of 3- and 4th-leaf miniature clovers grew around that crystal necklace I left him. There literally are no words that can describe that photo. So I laughed and said, you guys are all so awesome. I love you so much. They've left feathers when I need it. They leave different things when I need it. They've helped me find car keys when I need it. They're a great companion, and they don't ask for much. They just like little treats now and then of appreciation. So let's see. You can also go to the Orb Whispering page, which is under the same category, and you will find a short video from my friend Michael Wilson, who probably is listening today. Thank you again for this, Michael. And Michael called the fairies in so he could take a picture of one, and they obliged. And know that souls and beings often travel in the shape of orbs, which you will see many photos on those pages on my website, and you will even see human faces within the middle of some of those orbs. They can shapeshift from energetic orbs into another form. And in this video, you will see a flash of wings of a fairy in the lower right-hand corner. So check that out. Okay, so, I want to stop here, and I want to see if there are any questions you have for me about anything having to do with fae or fairies. So, Nicole, is there any?
Okay. I've been standing by at the ready. I'll just let you know we've got 11 minutes to the top, and we have lots of questions. Firstly, I wanted to say thank you so much for mentioning Cleve Baxter. I've interviewed him many times over the years before his passing, and still run the replays in hopes that someone picks up his work. It's so important. And also,
it is important.
Yes, absolutely huge, monumental. I was surprised that people weren't on top of that more. James Gilliland, we actually went out and did a live broadcast there many years ago, watching for UFOs skyward during the It was quite funny because right at the end, but right at the end, all heck started breaking loose, and it was literally in the last minute of the show. It was quite funny. Okay, let's get to a couple of questions.
Well,
all right,
you're ahead of your time, Nicole, and I appreciate everything you bring forward. Thank you.
It's just so good
let me
to
see
hear
how fast I can answer a bunch of questions.
Okay,
let's go.
Susie is asking, I want to get the most important question in here first, because Susie is asking, she had heard that the fairy folk are evil or tricksters. Please clarify.
Okay, so great. That would be like saying humans are evil and tricksters. Okay? As I told you, they've lost trust in humans because, understandably, right? And I will discuss in the next show how they actually went through almost a Holocaust and have been through hell and back. And we will talk about more of our true history, which will explain that for the next show. Basically, it's tricky to stereotype anything. And what I have found is whatever is attracted in your life will often be a reflection of the energy you're running at the time. So if you are benevolent, and if you ask for only benevolent that are here for the benefit of all mankind and fairies and fae to work with you, then those will be attracted. They actually are great protectors, and I have had no problem with it. They were mischievous once, and on my website, on that page, you're going to hear a funny story of where they're mischievous because they got jealous. But I've never known them to do anything harmful. I'm part Irish, and I'm mischievous. Okay, so that's like my nature. So I usually got to go, okay, you guys, very funny, give it back or something. But they don't do that much. I mean, these guys right now are so busy running around trying to repair the atmosphere and what's going on, and their portals from being destroyed. So, yes, there are, but you will look what is right for you is my answer.
I had a quick add-on question to that because early in the day, Stuart Wilde came all the way over here in Vancouver, BC from Ireland to teach me stuff one-on-one.
Yeah.
And
cool.
One of the things, my gosh. So, he was big into entities and the other world and all kinds of stuff. Especially it was post-God's Gladiator space, so he was really full on with it. And he was trying to get me and my cameraman to go to Tofino on Vancouver Island to take us into a haunted, spooky, evil fairy forest. Like he was calling them so are there dark forces in the fairy folk? We got too scared.
Sure, because this is a polarity game. And there's a lot of white magicians and white witches and dark magicians and dark witches, and you'll be surprised to know that the royal families all have their own witches and elementals, and it's a huge thing. So because this is a polarity experiment and we're trying to move out of polarizing into a integration, unification, yes, there are. Some of them have been tortured and trapped themselves, just like humans. They've been through a lot, and that can distort them. However, as you know, so no, I'm glad. I think it was good that you didn't go in there. Why? Why? Right? So, I mean, I don't really worry about that. I'm going to tell you really quick, a quick quote. I shared this in another show. It's one of my favorite quotes by Andromedan Sage. He said, "Human, you need to keep your innocence and drop your naivete." Okay? That is my answer. So naivete is the willing to expand your consciousness and learn a lot, even about what you're resistant to, so that you can make wiser decisions out of discernment, not judgment. That's my answer.
Good answer. Okay. Apologies in advance to those that we don't get to. I'm just watching the clock, 7 minutes, and it's going to cut us right off. So, but I want to get this next one.
Let me say, Nicole, that I did, while I'm talking on the show, decide to do my next one on a continuation of this. So you guys that don't get addressed, I will allow, maybe as much as 30 minutes because it's so amazing. It's so fun in the next show in 2 weeks. So just keep those questions and write them in. Okay?
Okie dokie. So this one I think is relevant to our times right now. Daniela is asking, what can we do, how do we harness Fae energy in a positive way to apply to the current world situation?
Oh, how do you harness it? When you acknowledge the Fae fairy elementals, they are appreciative. If you're consistent with that acknowledgement, I mean, I have asked them at times, can you clear the air if it's for the benefit of all? I know you guys are struggling and doing a lot, and I will work with you as a co-creator. So this is just how I talk, and they will shift things. I don't ask for it like, oh, just for myself. I mean, I have occasionally, I said, I need you guys to bring me a feather so I can use it for smudging. And within 24 hours, there was a huge feather. So, but I don't really, it's like friends. You don't ask your friends to do stuff all the time. What you do is you work, this is a period of collaboration with diversity, and these all are experts at nature. And nature, humans and Fae, which I'll explain in the next show, are inextricably entwined because their job is to keep Earth alive. And all the nature, because it was designed as a garden planet, our job is to work in collaboration with that, to not destroy in actions in third dimension the Earth. So we really need to work as a team. And if you ask that you want positive fairy in your life, and most of the time that's probably because you have it in your DNA, and they will know if you have it in your DNA. They will feel more comfortable. But it's not like they're going to just become your best friends immediately. They have learned mistrust a lot, but they are very excited about working together again. So don't worry about it. There's no rituals or any. I mean, I can give you a bunch of rituals. You don't need any of that. They're telepathic, and they read your intent. And what I do is I send them a message, and I also say it out loud. My neighbors, of course, laugh at me because they've helped 2 trees that were dead come back to life. And I'm just like calling in the garden, hey, fairies, you guys, I really need your help with this one. If it works for you, I know you're really busy, blah, 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 blah. You just talk like you would a friend. Okay?
All right. On that note, you know what? We've got 3 minutes. Let's give you time to wrap up and do some shameless self-promotion before they turn the lights out on us.
Well, I don't really need that except just to tell you, because I've already told you what the next show will be about. And also, usually by Monday evening, Nicole is sweet enough to put up a pre-announcement that includes what the topic will be and in bullet points the exact things that will be discussed that you can cater your questions to. So because there's such an interest in this subject, and it's very, very important at this point because of all the hybrids on this planet, that I am definitely going to do the next show continuing on the same thing. Okay? So I've already given my website out. You guys can look under supersoulsolutions.com. Go look under the Whispering banner and check out the orbs and check out the fairy. And you're going to see it took me a year to even put those pages together and accumulate the real picture. So go have fun with that. I really appreciate it. I'm so sorry I didn't get, again, to address your questions. So I'll try to be better. I'm spanking myself so that next time maybe we can leave a half hour, since I know this is of great interest and that there's quite a few questions. Is that correct, Nicole?
Yeah, but I'll just put in, that, you've got a lot of good stuff to share. So still bring it to the table. We want to hear the stories and put all the research on the table. So don't worry so much about that. Do what we're supposed to get to. And today was great. Looking forward to next time.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who is taking your valuable time. And allow more magic in your life and on Wonder. You're going to have fun. Don't worry about self-esteem issues. Don't worry that it has to be done a particular way, okay? They know intent. And just, you can say, I would like to invite any of the positive Fae or fairies or Elvens to step more in my life. and so that we can be partners through generating the earth together.